Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most shocking, messy, and unexpected celebrity legal battles of the year. And trust me, this story has everything. A-list stars, secret lawsuits, bombshell betrayals, and a courtroom drama so intense it could rival any Hollywood script. We're talking about Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. Two stars who once had squeaky-clean reputations, now embroiled in a bitter, career-threatening war. What started as a simple disagreement on a movie set has exploded into a no-holds-barred legal battle, complete with secret shell companies, leaked private messages, accusations of conspiracy, and reputations hanging by a thread. The deeper you dig, the darker this story gets. And just when you think you know where it's heading, another bombshell drops. Today we're breaking down the entire saga, from the moment the first cracks appeared on set to the massive legal chess moves happening behind the scenes. So grab a snack, settle in, and hit that like button, because this is one celebrity showdown you do not want to miss. The feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni first erupted during the filming of It Ends With Us, a highly anticipated film adaptation of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel. On the surface, this was supposed to be a career highlight for both stars. Blake, an A-list actress with a carefully curated reputation for professionalism, and Justin, an actor-director admired for his uplifting, inspirational brand, were expected to create magic together on screen. But behind the polished press releases and Instagram posts, things quickly deteriorated. Blake began to experience what she described as a toxic and inappropriate working environment, citing incidents where Justin allegedly improvised intimate scenes without her prior consent, pressured her into uncomfortable situations, and fostered an overall hostile atmosphere, both during shooting and off-camera. Sources from the set later suggested that tensions were palpable, with crew members feeling divided between loyalty to Blake's complaints and a sense of confusion about Justin's sudden shift in behavior behind the scenes. Some even described the working conditions as chaotic and said it became harder to tell who was truly at fault, further muddying the waters once legal action began. Blake, known for being extremely selective about her projects and fiercely protective of her image, decided she couldn't just let it slide. She filed a formal internal complaint with the production company, describing specific instances of misconduct and asking for an official investigation. When no satisfactory action was taken internally, and as whispers began circulating in the media, Blake and her legal team escalated the matter into a public legal case. But even Blake may not have realized that by pulling the first thread, she would unravel one of the most shocking celebrity legal sagas we've seen in years. Rather than staying silent or attempting to settle the matter quietly, Justin Baldoni came out swinging with a move that shocked even the most seasoned Hollywood insiders. He filed a $400 million defamation countersuit, not only against Blake Lively, but also implicating her husband Ryan Reynolds and their joint publicist. In his lawsuit, Justin painted a very different picture of what had happened on set. He claimed that Blake's accusations were not only false, but part of a carefully calculated and malicious smear campaign. According to Justin, Blake, Ryan, and their team used their enormous celebrity influence, their connections with the press, their social media power, and their industry pull to systematically destroy his professional reputation. Justin's filing described how quickly the tide of public opinion had turned against him after Blake's allegations went public. He pointed to lost directing deals, endorsement opportunities, and acting contracts, claiming that entire future projects collapsed overnight because of the bad press. In his view, this wasn't just about damage to his career, it was about his name, his character, and his ability to work in the industry at all. Moreover, Justin's team alleged that the media narrative wasn't accidental. It was intentionally fueled behind the scenes through strategic leaks, anonymous sources, and whisper campaigns designed to make Justin unhireable in Hollywood. The $400 million figure wasn't random either. Justin's lawyers calculated the total based on lost earnings over the next decade, emotional distress, punitive damages, and the long-term harm to his ability to ever rebuild his career. This wasn't just a defense, it was a full-scale counterattack, and it showed that Justin wasn't simply trying to clear his name. He was fighting for his entire future. And he was prepared to take Blake, Ryan, and anyone else involved down with him. While Justin Baldoni was launching his massive $400 million countersuit in public view, Blake Lively was already making bold legal moves behind the scenes, moves no one knew about until months later. It was uncovered that Blake had secretly filed a lawsuit under the name of a Delaware-based shell company called Van Zen Inc. This wasn't some clumsy cover-up. It was a deliberate, highly strategic maneuver designed to give her legal team extraordinary subpoena power without tipping Justin's side off. By operating through Van Zandt Inc., Blake's attorneys were able to target private communications, specifically messages between Justin's former publicist, Stephanie, without ever publicly naming Justin or anyone else in the initial lawsuit. In legal terms, this is known as filing a DOE lawsuit, suing anonymous parties, often used when a plaintiff doesn't yet know exactly who is responsible for wrongdoing. But in Blake's case, critics say it was used aggressively, not to figure out who was responsible, but to quietly build a devastating evidence file before publicly unleashing it. The brilliance and controversy of this tactic lies in the fact that because the lawsuit didn't name defendants, Justin's legal team had no warning that subpoenas were being issued. They had no chance to object, no chance to limit the scope, and no chance to protect privileged communications, rights that are usually standard in legal proceedings. And it worked. Thanks to Van Zandt Inc., Blake's side gathered text messages and internal discussions that would later become the foundation of her public complaint against Justin. But while Blake's team may have seen it as a brilliant legal strategy, once this move was exposed, it raised serious ethical and legal questions, not just about the case itself, but about how far celebrities will go to win when their careers, reputations, and personal brands are on the line. Once Blake Lively's legal team successfully subpoenaed the private communications through Van Zandt Inc., they uncovered what they believed was their smoking gun: a series of damning text messages between Justin Baldoni's former publicist, Stephanie, and members of Justin's inner circle. These texts weren't just casual conversations. They appeared to show intentional discussions about damaging Blake's reputation behind the scenes. One particularly chilling line stood out: "We can bury anyone." That phrase alone set off alarm bells, suggesting not just anger or frustration, but a premeditated strategy to destroy Blake's career if she didn't stay silent. The messages, according to Blake's formal complaint, hinted at a broader coordinated campaign: discussions about leaking negative stories to the media, strategizing about how to frame Blake as difficult and unstable, and even suggesting ways to manipulate public sympathy away from her before the situation could escalate. In Blake's legal filing, these text messages were presented as irrefutable proof that what she experienced wasn't just workplace hostility. It was part of a calculated takedown, crafted carefully behind the scenes by people she had once worked alongside. It wasn't just a bad working relationship anymore. Blake's team argued that it had crossed over into professional sabotage, a ruthless attempt to destroy her public image before she could speak out. But of course, Justin's side quickly fought back. His attorneys argued that the messages were cherry-picked snippets, completely taken out of context. They insisted that when seen in full, the conversations did not suggest a conspiracy, but rather normal behind-the-scenes venting during a tense production period. Justin's team also claimed that critical parts of the conversation were deliberately omitted from Blake's filing, making the situation look far worse than it actually was. So while Blake's side claimed the texts were a smoking gun, Justin's side argued they were nothing more than twisted evidence. And the battle over what those words truly meant became one of the most bitter fights in the case so far. When it was finally revealed that Blake Lively had used a secret shell company, Van Zandt Inc., to subpoena private communications without any formal notice, Justin Baldoni's legal team exploded with outrage. Led by his powerhouse attorney, Brian Friedman, Justin's camp accused Blake's legal team of crossing serious ethical and legal lines. In public statements, Friedman slammed the maneuver as a flagrant abuse of process, claiming that Blake's side had intentionally bypassed basic protections that every defendant is entitled to under the law. In Friedman's view, Blake's team didn't just act aggressively, they manipulated the system, filing what he called a fictitious lawsuit that had no real basis, all to gain behind-the-scenes access to sensitive private communications without oversight. And because the original Van Zandt lawsuit didn't name any real defendants, Justin's team never even knew it existed, meaning they were denied the chance to fight the subpoenas, limit the scope, or assert privilege over sensitive materials. In other words, according to Justin's side, Blake's legal team didn't just play hardball. They cheated the normal rules of litigation to ambush their opponents. Brian Friedman didn't stop there. He warned that Blake's lawyers themselves could face sanctions or even legal penalties for what he described as bad faith litigation tactics. In the world of civil court, accusing opposing lawyers of unethical behavior is a nuclear option, one that signals just how personal and bitter this legal fight has become. Justin's side argued that the Van Zandt lawsuit tainted the entire case because all evidence gathered through allegedly improper subpoenas could potentially be challenged, thrown out, or heavily scrutinized in court. Meanwhile, Blake's team defended their actions, arguing that DOE lawsuits and shell companies are completely legal tools in complex cases, especially when protecting the plaintiff's safety or preventing destruction of evidence. But the damage was done. The public now saw two sides not just fighting over facts, but accusing each other of full-scale legal misconduct, a situation far messier and more scandalous than most celebrity lawsuits ever dare to become. The question hanging in the air now wasn't just who was telling the truth. It was whether the very process of uncovering that truth had become hopelessly corrupted. As the secret behind Van Zandt Inc. came to light, it became clear that Blake Lively's legal strategy wasn't just about gathering evidence. It was about building a full narrative of betrayal, piece by piece. In the anonymous lawsuit filed through Van Zandt Inc., Blake's legal team alleged that unnamed parties, referred to as the DOE defendants, had seriously violated her trust and legal agreements. These weren't vague accusations. Blake's team outlined specific behaviors that, if true, painted a picture of deep and personal betrayal. Breaching confidentiality agreements, sharing Blake's private information without her permission, acting in bad faith, making decisions that prioritized their own gain or protected themselves at Blake's expense, fostering harm to her professional reputation, either by leaking damaging information or by staying silent when others attacked her, violating loyalty obligations, essentially turning on her behind the scenes while pretending to be neutral or supportive. According to the Van Zandt complaint, the defendants' actions weren't just careless. They were deliberate, designed to weaken Blake's professional standing and expose her to public humiliation. In other words, Blake's team wasn't just accusing people of being unprofessional. They were accusing them of betrayal at the deepest level, both legally and personally. The lawsuit described how this betrayal had allegedly caused significant reputational and economic damages to Blake, including loss of work opportunities, damage to her relationships with studios and brands, emotional distress and humiliation, and the risk of long-term career harm if the narrative wasn't corrected. They demanded compensatory damages for financial loss, non-economic damages for emotional pain, and other remedies the court might find appropriate. Blake's side also emphasized that this was not an impulsive action. They portrayed Blake as someone who spent months collecting evidence, reflecting on the betrayal, and only moving forward when it became clear she had no other choice to protect herself. Meanwhile, Justin's camp called the lawsuit a theatrical attempt to spin the situation, arguing that Blake was weaponizing vague allegations and shell company tactics to manufacture victimhood. At this point, it wasn't just a battle over workplace conduct. It was a war over who was the real betrayer and who was the real victim. The stakes were no longer just financial. They were emotional, personal, and deeply tied to Blake's and Justin's public identities, both of whom had built careers on being seen as ethical, admirable public figures. The courtroom wasn't just going to decide who owed money. It was going to decide who deserved to keep their carefully built public image intact. Sources close to Blake revealed that she knew exactly what she was getting into when she chose to pursue this legal path. Blake reportedly spent months preparing emotionally and mentally for the inevitable backlash, knowing full well that the media, critics, and even fans might turn on her. But in Blake's mind, the bigger risk was staying silent. As a mother of 3 daughters, she saw standing up for herself, even if it meant controversy, as the right thing to do. She wasn't just fighting for her career. She was fighting to set an example about courage, boundaries, and personal dignity. It wasn't just a legal battle anymore. For Blake, it had become personal and deeply principled. In the midst of all this chaos, Blake Lively scored one of the biggest public image wins of her career. She was named to Time magazine's 100 Most Influential People of 2025, praised not for her acting, but for her dedication to social justice and philanthropy. Civil rights leader Sherilyn Ifill praised Blake's genuine commitment to learning about America's toughest issues, highlighting her quiet contributions to major causes over the years. Blake celebrated the moment on Instagram, posting an emotional tribute to the importance of fighting for a better future. It was a massive validation at a critical moment, but not everyone bought into the feel-good narrative. Some critics immediately raised eyebrows. Was Blake's Time magazine honor authentic recognition, or a smartly timed PR move to soften the negative press from the lawsuit? It wouldn't be the first time Blake's image management backfired. Her infamous donut shop visit earlier this year, meant to seem relatable, ended up getting the store investigated for health violations. Skeptics wondered if her team had strategically highlighted her philanthropy work to distract from the brewing scandal. Still, supporters argue Blake's activism was ongoing long before any legal trouble, and that her recognition was well-earned, not opportunistic. Regardless, the timing of the honor couldn't have been better for Blake's team, or more suspicious to her critics. One thing is certain, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni are now locked in a brutal war, one that goes far beyond lawsuits and movie sets. It's a war for reputation, it's a war for credibility, and ultimately, it's a war for survival in an industry that loves a redemption arc, but never forgets a scandal. Now we want to hear from you. Is Blake standing up for what's right, or manipulating the system to protect herself? Is Justin a victim of false accusations, or is he hiding something far worse? And when all is said and done, who do you think will walk away with their career intact? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're dying to know where you stand. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell, because we'll be covering every major twist as this case continues to explode. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second of it. This Hollywood battle just keeps getting crazier. Thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned, because when it comes to Blake versus Justin, the next bombshell could drop at any moment.